Well, good evening once again, and welcome again to the Monday Review Show. We're on air this time every Monday night, discussing refereeing and refereeing issues and controversies and whatever. If you want to make a comment, please do so. There's a little thing down on the right-hand side of your screen where you can send in a comment, and you can either send in a question or a comment to either Keith or myself. But at all times, please be respectful of the show and particularly of my guest. Now, we've got lots of things to talk about. I'm not even sure we'll get through it all, but let's start with something that's just broken in the last couple of hours, Keith. The fact that Scottish referees are demanding more support from their football association, and you were the one who picked this up and you sent it to me.
Yes.
Would you like to kick off with that?
Well, I think that there's no doubts that VAR and the introduction of VAR, and remember the Scottish FA are in the first year of its introduction, so it's still a learning curve. But there's no doubts that if we look at even our own show here, we're talking almost week in, week out about VAR and how it is operated, and perhaps that is putting a searchlight onto individual decisions and exposing errors in terms of the referees and the decision-making process. So in a way, it can be undermining the referees because of the application. I think that we've seen the delay in how long it takes to actually implement a decision once VAR has come in.
Yeah. Just on that, Keith, one of the African Cup of Nations is on at the moment, and there was a game. I think it was last night between. Yeah, it was last night between Egypt were playing. Name is the other team. It just escapes me. But there was a penalty 5 minutes into referee's additional time at the end of the game, and it was a clear-cut penalty where both players' feet were up, but the defender, his foot was below, and he kicked the guy on the top, and it was a clear penalty. The referee, I think his name was, he was from Mauritania. I can't remember his name. Yeah, he was from Mauritania, and he arrived at a decision quite quickly. Now, he did listen on the earpiece, and then he went to check the monitor, and following that, he made the decision it was a penalty. But he arrived at the decision very, very quickly. And that seems to be the big issue. I know we're deviating from the Scottish one, so we'll come back to that in a moment. But just on that issue, how quickly they arrived at a decision, and it was clear-cut, and no big hoo-ha, where in the Premier League, it takes forever and a day to arrive at a decision.
Yeah, I think that it might be interesting. I'll check whether, in fact, the semi-automated offside system is operating in the African nations, just as a matter of interest. But I generally believe that on clear and obvious situations, errors, I think that a quick decision can be made. But it's the referees that actually control the time to some degree, by way of, when I talk about the referees, I'm referring to the VAR at Stockley Park in the Premier League, because I noticed yesterday on an offside decision, it took 4 minutes. Yeah. And when they replayed it, you could see that the player had come from an offside position, and therefore he was offside. But it was still going on and on and on. And then the line appeared, and I just got the feeling that the technology to get that line up on the screen to confirm the offside decision was the cause of the delay. But what VAR has done, I think, is that it's almost put a nervous streak into the referees, because when VAR kicks in, they don't want any error. It's almost like saying, well, if VAR's come in, it's got to be right. And we know that we've had instances where VAR has kicked in and the outcome has still been the wrong decision. And so therefore, the public are saying this corruption and questioning the integrity of the match officials. Well, this is about.
Why do you think, Keith? Why do you think they appear to be so nervous at making that final decision, even though it is the correct decision? They just appear very nervous. Having watched the incident, and I mean the TV commentators and those guys, they're watching the same incident.
Yes.
So it's not as if they have additional footage or information that the referee doesn't have that can prove him wrong a day or two later. They just seem so scared to make that decision. And they're VAR is not operating.
Well, let me give you an example. And I suggested this a couple of 3 days ago. I may have mentioned it on here. When we first sit in the car, we've got our L plates on. We're trying to distinguish what is the brake, what is the accelerator, and what's the clutch. So we've got three things here helping us. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because over a period of time, the more examinations that we take, i.e., we're going out for a test drive and all that goes with it. The more that we do that, the more efficient we become. Now, when we get in a car, if it's got gears in, we don't even think about that. It becomes natural. And so one of the reasons I think that we've got a difference in a competition like the African nations, like the World Cup, is that they are appointing specific VAR operators. That is all they're doing. They're concentrating the training. They're giving them very clear guidelines. They're then assessing the performance of the VAR, and they're giving support in that role. What we've got is we've got guys who are intermittently doing the job of VAR and also doing the role of referee. And I think this relationship is not a good one. I've expressed that before. Now, when it comes to the VAR is almost like once he's said, you need to look at the screen or whatever, he's trying to justify that decision in his own mind as the VAR. Whereas if we look at the guidelines we're given when we're an assistant referee, the referee who we're running the line to gives us the confidence, doesn't he? He'll say in his pre-match, and by the way, if you see something untoward behind my back or you feel necessary to come in, flag, and we'll get it right. And there's a relationship that's developed because that assistant referee is working with that referee on a fairly consistent manner, regular operation. I think the VAR, you're doing it 1 week and then it might be another 2 or 3 weeks before you do it again, isn't conducive to performance. I go back to that car analogy. I go back to the golfer. I can remember a couple of 3 years ago watching a tournament in Portugal, and the guy, I forgot who his name was, but he had an outstanding round, several points under par. But then I walked to sort of have a walk round to the putting green, and there he was practicing. And I sort of said to the caddy, I asked the caddy, why is he's leading the tournament. Why is he practicing the putting? Because he's only done it a few times. Because the putts have been running in and I want to maintain that, but practice makes perfect. So I think this is the area that is the problem. And I think that the Scottish referees are recognizing that they're coming under pressure, right? And the federation is not supporting them. They haven't got a PGMOL. They operate differently. It's the Scottish FA that manages their referees. And they feel that perhaps, clubs like Celtic have questioned the integrity of the match official, I believe. And the referees have come under pressure in terms of the decision-making process. and they feel that they're not getting the support. And this is a you know, a situation where, you know, it's a village in Scotland. I don't want to say that, but it's a small nation, relatively speaking, in football terms.
Sure.
There is a smaller number of top quality officials. And look, I used to report on them a couple of years ago in writing, and I look some of the refereeing and I'm thinking, crikey, wouldn't mind you in the English Premier League. You know, so there is quality match officials, but they're concerned about the integrity issues that they're coming under pressure from. And they feel that they need more support. Now, what I was really pleased about is that they're also offering a solution. And their solution is, please give us more training, educate us more. And therefore, I think that is, you know, I think when we look at, you know, the times have changed.
Yeah.
I look at the Premier League referees, and we're critical of them and all that goes with it. But I still think these guys are completely and utterly underpaid. 100,000. You know, I used to get 35 quid a match, and you and I used to do international matches for nothing.
I remember running the line in South Africa for 22 rand.
Yeah.
22 rand is about the equivalent of £1 now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going back to 1985. So
this is probably, I don't want to sort of swing this away from the scene.
Yeah.
But I just feel that if these guys are in the spotlight, which they are, and they're coming under pressure, which they are, they're coming under criticism, which they are, the first thing is you've got to have a very strong supporter in that role. You've also got to go for transparency within that role, right? And you've got to give them the support and coaching, but you've also got to give them the money. And for me, if Scottish referees are not getting 100K, they're not getting the right amount of money. If English referees are not getting $250,000, they're not getting the right money.
I wrote an article on this very subject, Keith, some years ago in the Sunday Independent here in Ireland, national newspaper. And it was all about professional referees before they became professional. And I was asked, do you think professional refereeing is the way to go? And I said, not necessarily. What we need are match officials with a professional approach. To get to such a stage, then you can pay them by all means, but it shouldn't be a money issue. Referees should be in it for the love of the game to be able to do a good job. Secondly, I also said that refereeing, there should be an independent refereeing body looking after referees, totally away from the FA or the whoever else is controlling them, the Football Association. In England, they get their salaries from the FA, from the Premier League, and from the Championship. That in itself is to me, is a red flag, because now the clubs feel that they have a right to question the referees. I mean, look what's happening with the assistant referees on the line and the fourth official. Every decision the referee makes, if the assistant referee is so unfortunate to be next to the dugout, there's guys in his ear. If not, the fourth official is getting it. That shouldn't be allowed to happen, Keith.
Well,
I think the referees can stop that.
Well, I think the first thing is that when I talk about the game is more difficult now than it used to be, and I do believe that referees are making it more difficult because I don't think.
Well, I was going to say, is it more difficult, and why? So,
I think that there is, running through the playing side of the game, there is a dishonesty.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Therefore,
100%.
Therefore, not every player is a cheat, but we've got a lot of cheats. We've got situations where fouls occur. What are fouls that would have been a free kick in our day sufficient, but we've got players surrounding the referee on what is small challenges.
But they're doing that, Keith, because they're getting away with it.
No, of course they are. But see, but then But then, well, ultimately, at the end of the day, if the referees are doing the job, which let's say they are in the main, then are the authorities giving them the level of support that they deserve by issuing the appropriate sanctions? Now, I learned today, I was aware at Premier League level that when you have a key match incident as a referee in the Premier League, someone flags that up. That might be the club, that might be the media, and then that is actually discussed and analysed by an independent panel made up of players and referees and administrators. So I would question that on the basis of referees need to be strong managers. By that I mean Howard Webb and his coaching staff in England have to be strong, have to give guidance, and have to decide whether the referee is in form, out of form, or whether he's doing a good job or not. And I was rebuked the other day. In a way, the PGMOL responded to a comment. I said in a piece that I was concerned about the appointment process. And they'd got the glory, the PGMOL, by announcing the first woman referee, Rebecca Welsh, doing a game. She refereed Fulham. The management of both clubs made positive comments in the media. And my view was, why hasn't she got a second game? Sam Allison also did Sheffield United Luton. Our local press praised his performance. The commentators in the media, BBC Sheffield, said he'd had a good game. He's not had a second game. So you see how we're not using the appointment process as adequately as we should. Now, zipping back to Scotland, it's their integrity that they're concerned about that's being questioned. And I made a comment this week and somebody said, Hackett, or words to the effect that Hackett says they're corrupt. That is now agreed that they're corrupt. I went straight back to that social media guy and said, that is not what I said. I've never questioned the integrity of our referees. I questioned the competence and accuracy of their decision making. You know, they sent a player off. I'm trying to remember who it is. Calvert-Lewin in the Everton game.
Oh, yeah.
Right. They sent him off. This was a challenge not worthy of a red card. Mm-hmm. The referee, Chris Kavanagh, on the day said he didn't give anything. He didn't even give a free kick. But then the monitor comes in, the VAR decides that he needs to go to the monitor. And in the Stockley Park, there was a VAR. That was Craig Pawson, an international FIFA referee. There was an SVAR, a new position. He's a former international referee. The fourth official in that game on field was a Premier League referee. So we had 4 Premier League referees involved in an incident with an incorrect outcome. A red card issued under serious foul play, but it didn't meet the criteria. And so you then ask yourself, this is not about corruption, this is about competence, but this is about application of basic law. And I think what the Scottish FA want is a defence mechanism. And that defence mechanism is somebody coming out and clarifying it. But I think they also want the investment going in for additional training. And I think if a referee at the elite level is saying, as a group, we need more training, then the investment should be from the Scottish FA should go in, and that should be a gimme.
Yeah.
There's more training and we'll improve our performance levels. I'm
but you
suggesting
think,
in England, the problem in England is they take I've mentioned the salaries and all that goes with it, but they're taking the money. They're not going to say, don't give me the job of VAR on tomorrow, because in a way, it's less salary that they're going to
um, I'm just wondering, Keith, is this only becoming an issue now since they brought in VAR in Scotland? You say it's only been there a year or so.
Yeah.
Up to this, I mean, competency and ability and all that wasn't an issue in the past. Why is it suddenly becoming an issue now?
Look, I think that in a way, the outcomes are generally pretty good. But there will be, as we've all recognized in football, it's a human element. It's a law interpretation. It's subjective, some of the laws. And therefore, we're going to get that level of error. But it's almost like we've now got VAR and we're going to be 100% accurate. And in fairness to Kalina, who drove VAR's introduction, he made it quite clear from day one, this wouldn't be utopia. It wouldn't give us 100% accuracy in decision making because of the subjectivity around certain decisions. But I think in England, we've discussed, haven't we, times many, the incidents where you say on a second look, we've mentioned it this evening, how long it takes to make the decision. And when it takes that long, it loses credibility because doubt's in the mind of the spectator. But I've said today, and I keep saying it, if you're a spectator in the stadium, you haven't got a clue what's going on, other than they put a slide up on the screen and say, we're reviewing offside or we are reviewing the penalty decision. That's it.
Yeah.
They don't say we're actually going back one or going back two. They're treating the fans like mushrooms, and I think this is putting on additional pressure from the fans onto the match officials.
Okay, now my very good friend who lives in Kinsale in County Cork, Declan King, former radio man, former announcer and journalist and so on. He's a big Manchester City fan. And he was bemoaning the fact about the late flag that you and I have talked about. We'll give it a bit of attention now. The late flag, the delayed flag, and the Man City keeper was injured as a result of the flag not going up and so on. I'm just lost for words. Carry on. It's crazy.
Well, I wrote an article in the Daily Telegraph the day after. I can understand why there's a delayed flag, because they're covering in case the flag is raised and there's an error in judgment. So I can understand it. But on this occasion, the player was clearly offside. He wasn't inches off, a toenail. He was a long way offside. An easy decision for the assistant referee. He then is allowed to move at pace towards the penalty area. And the consequence is an injury. And they're coming together. And serious. And it's not the first time. Tyrone Mings, top-class player, is out of the game from the start of the season through being injured through a delayed flag. Now, the criteria of VAR allows and suggests that a flag should be delayed. But I can also read into that criteria that if it's clear that the player is offside, put the flag up. I would go one step further. I think that delaying the flag in a situation where you're close to the halfway line, moving towards the penalty area, all those areas where players are at speed, sometimes they're looking at the ball. They're not actually seeing what's in front of them. I know that sounds daft. They look up occasionally, and all that goes with it. You've got the goalkeepers coming out, crashing into the player. So for me, if a player is in offside position between the halfway line and the penalty area, I don't want a delayed flag. I want the authorities to reconsider that aspect of a delayed flag. I'm quite happy for a delayed flag inside the penalty area. And I think that the reason for that is I think that the players there are few occasions when you get strong runs into the penalty area, head down and away you go at pace. You do get them. But as a halfway house, I'm suggesting that in this case, like the Manchester City incident, where the player is clearly offside, the assistant referee knows he's offside, the flag should be raised to avoid potential injury. Now, John Stones is out of the game. He's been out of the game for exactly the same thing. A player yesterday, we said, didn't we? I think we mentioned this in one of our previous programs, Harold, that this is a dangerous tactic to employ in refereeing. For me, I think the health and safety of players are more important, and therefore they should be the consideration. And we should avoid this type of injury.
So your suggestion was anywhere between the halfway line and the penalty area there. What happens then, just to add a little bit of fuel to this fire, if the goalkeeper, if the defenders are so far up that the goalkeeper comes out and crashes into the guy, so is it not better just to do away with the damn thing altogether? If he's offside and be done with it.
Well, the authorities will be reluctant to change anything that we suggest, and they've invested in. There was an incident, interestingly, this week at Hull City, where the goalkeeper came out and crashed into the opponent. Now, at the very least, it was a yellow card. Very least, a yellow card. I could justify a red. Clearly could justify a red in that situation. And to be honest with you, as a referee, I would have given red because the goalkeeper had a raised knee as well. So that was enough to say, you're going, son. Interestingly, the referee gave a free kick against the forward. I couldn't believe it. I discussed it earlier today. Look, we didn't have delayed flags. And to be honest with you, in the Premier League, we had some outstanding assistant referees. We've still got them, but they're not being used in the way that they should be. And it's not being an old fart, not wanting to move with the times. I just think that we're dealing with players of such value. We're dealing with potential life-threatening injuries. We're looking at, I know that's in the extreme, but when you've got a goalkeeper running out and you've got a forward running and not aware that the goalkeeper's coming towards him and they come together, then, you've got a serious injury on your hands.
Yeah.
And the laws of, somebody said to me on social media today, the laws of the game, I think, were formed and penned over many years to take into account the safety and the behavior of players.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, what they consider to be in the interests of the game, to cover for an inaccurate offside decision, the flag going up, the offside given, I think that's a better scenario than a player not being able to carry on in the game.
And Keith, as you said a moment ago, with the cost of players and the investment of clubs in players, I mean, talking millions and millions and millions, tens of, sometimes 100 million, as in the case of Jack Grealish, I think, and
John Stones.
You know
the England
what
player.
I mean? So there's a huge investment. Surely then the laws should be tailored to protect those players by not allowing this delayed flag, resulting in the Manchester City keeper being injured and possibly being out for a month. So I would have thought it would work the opposite way and say, let's get back to basics, guys. Put the flag up on the offside and get on with it.
Well, I mean, I'm not against that. I'm just saying that I think I've gone the halfway house. But the scenario is, the lawmakers have tried to clarify when we look at injury to players. This is why we have, in what is a foul challenge, we have careless, reckless, excessive force. It's why in serious foul play, they talk about the brutality. So when we actually look at the goalkeeper coming out, the forward coming together, defender or forward, and on an incident that should have been stopped because he's offside, just give the flag, give the offside. And I think it's time for the English FA and the Premier League and the managers to get together and say, look, we need the change here. It's not working. It's putting our players in danger.
I'm surprised that the League Managers Association haven't come in.
Well, said, I mean, look.
And it is an IFAB decision, isn't it? It is an IFAB ruling.
Oh, look, it's
Premier League. Can the Premier League say, okay, that's what you're doing internationally, but we're not going to do it? Can they do that? Not really.
Well, I don't know, because I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we've had the announcement today that the Spanish referees are now communicating an hour after kickoff, an hour after the game, their decisions. The communication is being released 1 hour after the match. So I don't necessarily think that's in the protocol, but. Look, the Premier League can catch a bus from Wembley Stadium or their office and travel to Wembley Stadium where the FA are. And we have to remember that the FA are members of the IFAB.
Yeah.
Along with the Welsh FA, the Scottish FA, and the Irish FA. And therefore, okay, they're not going to get a majority of vote, but they've got the influence to say, look, we need these changes. So I do believe that there is a pathway in which the LMA and managers can express a view, and so can referees.
And the IFAB meet now in March, I think, don't they, for any new changes?
But they meet on a more regular basis. And I think around that table are ex-players and therefore ex-managers. Well, the technical director is Arsene Wenger. And believe me, I've had discussions with Arsene regarding fouls, because he wanted every foul to be blown to protect his players. He didn't like the use of advantage because I think his view was that gave the player an escape clause to actually commit another offence.
Yeah.
And so I think those are the debates that need to be addressed. But if the Scottish FA referees are unhappy because their integrity is being questioned and they feel that they're not being supported, then I think they're right to voice that opinion. And I think they are, that worries me that they're in that situation, because the authorities have to protect their match officials and, if necessary, communicate to the media and to the audience what is going off, And, I think that, in fairness to Howard Webb, that's what Howard Webb did at the beginning of the season. He made it very clear what he expected from his referees by way of yellow cards. That's up from an average of 3 per game to something like 4.7. You know, in 198 games, there's 934 yellow cards being issued, and there's been 39 red cards. So I think Howard has toughened the situation up with referees. And someone like, you know, Anthony Taylor's over 5.5 yellow cards a game. So I think in that sense, referees are having to step up in England, but I think they are being undermined by the quality of the operation of VAR. And I think the Scottish referees are coming from that position. I have to say, when I used to review the Scottish games on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, I thought the introduction of VAR in Scotland was much better than in England. And I do know that the American Greg Barkey, who runs VAR in the MLS for pro referee, has been across to Scotland to run some workshops. So I think that got them off to a really good start. But now the power of the media and social media and all other aspects put additional pressures on referees.
Keith, as always, many thanks. We've run way over time. Thank you very much again. We'll do it all again next Monday with your assistance. And thank you out there for watching every Monday night, Monday Review Show on facebook.com/Hanging Judge Ref at 8 p.m. Until then, goodbye and God bless. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.